When it comes to weapons in Wuthering Waves, not all of them are created equal. Some best-in-slot choices are restricted to a particular character and can increase their damage quite significantly, like Cortethia's signature weapon, while others are more flexible and provide long-term value across multiple units. So in today's video, I'm going to provide my top picks for weapons that are more free-to-play or low-spender friendly, so that you can get them on their reruns if you cannot afford to pull for every signature weapon in the game. Keep in mind that this video is not meant to replace the best-in-slot weapons for every character, but to help you determine which weapon will be better for the vast majority of characters that you may have on your account without suffering from major damage losses, since it can be quite difficult to get the signature weapon and best-in-slot buffer for a particular DPS unit if you're low on pulls. This can also help you get the signature weapon designed for a specific unit later when you have enough pulls on your account to make them even more stronger. I'll be covering them in order of priorities, so if a weapon takes first priority for a particular weapon class, it means that weapon is extremely free-to-play friendly. With that said, let's start with Rectifiers, and the first priority on the list is none other than the king of versatility, which is Stringmaster. What makes this weapon so good is that it's viable on any DPS or sub-DPS unit, not just because of the high crit rate substat, but the 24% attack buff from the second part of the passive works on literally everyone. It requires you to do 2 instances of resonance skill damage to get all the 24% attack buff, and you can do that with Encore since she can cast her skills multiple times in her liberation mode, and each skill cast does 4 instances of damage. Frolova can get it by regenerating 40 stacks with the enhanced skill, which does 6 instances of damage. Phoebe can also utilize the 24% attack buff since she can use the first skill to place down the circle, which does 2 instances of damage, and the second skill, which teleports her into the circle, also does 2 instances of damage, so it can be used to refresh the 24% attack buff when it's about to run out. Cantarella's normal skill does 2 instances of damage as well, and Flickering Reverie, which applies Hazy Dream or slows down the enemy, does 1 instance of damage, so it can be used to refresh the 24% attack buff when she enters the Mirage state. Zheji's normal skill that places 2 of the Phantasmic Imprint does 3 instances of damage, and while she has no way of refreshing the 5 seconds duration of the attack buff, the duration is long enough for her to use all the 3 teleportation attacks to do damage. The second priority will be Frolova's signature weapon due to the well-balanced base attack and crit rate of 587 and 24.3% respectively. The passive is also very easy to activate for future Rectifier units if they scale off resonance skill damage, since you only need to use the wielder's echo skill to do damage. But the echo skill damage bonus won't provide that much value since it's a very niche offensive stat in the game. Zheji and Cantarella's signature are close in terms of priority since they provide basic attack damage bonus from the passive and the same low base attack of 500 with a high crit damage substat of 72%. But I would put Cantarella's signature in the third priority since it's much easier to activate the 40% basic attack damage bonus by just casting basic attacks, which can be good for Phoebe's Chamuel style basic attacks when she's in her circle and Zheji herself. But for units like Encore, the high crit damage substat is only better when paired with Showkeeper since she doesn't have crit rate on her skill tree. So Zheji's signature takes the 4th place in terms of priority or in terms of versatility, since the second part of the passive does the same job as Cantarella's by buffing basic attack damage, but it's much harder to activate since you need to cast Resonance skill multiple times. I don't recommend the following weapons as versatile options due to the following reasons. The basic attack and heavy attack damage bonus from Phoebe's weapon passive requires you to have Spectral Frazzle applied on the enemy before you can get it, so you only benefit from the high crit rate substat and a low base attack, which is quite underwhelming. Cosmic Ripples is easy to get and has synergy with Zheji and Cantarella since they scale off basic attack damage, and Encore as well since she does a lot of basic attacks in the Liberation state. But the lack of crit substat hurts their damage output quite significantly and makes it even harder to build units like Encore, who has fusion damage bonus on her skill tree. Now let's move on to swords, and the first priority on the list is Emerald of Genesis. It's a standard weapon that you can get for free at the start of the game, or set a target for it on the standard banner and pull with the lustrous ties that you usually get for free in the game. It has a crit rate substat, which is perfect for main damage dealers, and the passive that buffs attack synergizes really well with units that can cast their skills multiple times within a 10 seconds duration, like Dongjin, Chun-Li, Camellia, Spectral Rover, and Havoc Rover. I highly recommend that you set a target for this weapon if you don't have it on your account, and use your lustrous ties to get at least 2 copies on your account. This makes it easier when 2 units in your team are sword units like Sanwa and Camellia team, for example. It also makes it easier when running 2 teams in Whimpering Waste if the damage dealers in both teams are sword units. The second priority will be Red Spring or Camellia's signature weapon, which has a crit rate substat. The third part of the passive that grants the wielder 40% basic attack damage bonus upon consuming their concerto energy is useless on everyone else but Camellia. However, the 10% basic attack damage bonus from the second part of the passive is very easy to activate, since you need to hit the enemy with basic attacks, which synergizes really well with Brant, Yang Yang, and any future sword unit that scales off basic attack damage. The third priority for swords will be Blazing Brilliant or Chun-Li's signature. Is the last weapon priority for swords on the list, because we have very few sword units that scales off resonance skill damage, and the crit damage substat makes it harder to get decent crit ratio if the wielder has crit damage on their skill tree. In terms of synergy with other units, Havoc Rover, Spectral Rover, and DPS Dongjin are the best options, since they have sequences that gives them crit rate, which makes them take full advantage of the crit damage substat. So you don't have to worry about getting a decent crit ratio with such characters. Sanwa can also benefit from the resonance skill damage bonus, since the ice explosions or detonations from her Forte circuit scales off resonance skill damage, but if you mainly depend on her buffing capabilities, Emerald of Genesis or even Commander of Conviction and Endless Collapse will do just fine. I don't recommend the following weapons as versatile options due to the following reasons. Cartethia's signature has an HP substat, and she's the only sword unit at the time of making this video that scales off HP, so she's the only character that can benefit from it. You may be thinking that the 8% defense ignore after casting basic attacks makes it versatile, but substats always take a much higher priority. Brand's signature offers the same problem, which has an energy region substat. You may be thinking that the energy region could be beneficial to characters like Yang Yang, since she's a sub DPS who scales off basic attack damage, so the energy region will make her ult readily available every rotation. But that'll hurt her damage even further, because she doesn't need the energy region due to her resonance energy cost of just 100, so don't reduce her damage even further. Don't even try to use it on Camellia, for the love of God. Let's get into Broadblades, and the first priority in terms of versatility will be Jiyan's signature weapon. It has a crit damage substat, which shouldn't be a problem if you're worried about getting a decent crit ratio, because all the limited 5-star Broadblade units have crit rate on their skill tree, so you should be able to get 70% or more crit rate with a crit rate focus echo if you decide to run it on the existing Broadblade characters at the time of making this video. It also synergizes really well with Augusta, since she scales off heavy attack damage, and the reason Jiyan's signature takes priority over Augustus is because the passive is much easier to activate, since you only need to cast an intro skill and Liberation, while Augustus' signature requires the wielder to refresh shields before they can obtain the heavy attack damage defense ignore. So Augustus' signature will be the second priority, since Jiyan can use it as well if you have it on your account. Jinxi's signature will be the third priority, mainly because of the crit rate substat that it provides, but the passive that buffs resonance skill damage by 48% will not provide that much value for any other Broadblade unit on the roster. Lustrous Razor will be the fourth priority, since the passive has synergy with Lupa, but aside from Lupa, it won't provide that much value due to the attack percentage substat, which is less beneficial compared to crit, since it already provides a high base attack of 587. I don't recommend Lupa's signature as a versatile option, since the passive does not synergize with any limited unit at the time of making this video, because none of them scales off liberation damage, so it only has value if you mainly play Calculator. but the damage difference compared to Lustrous Razor is not that high at R1, so unless you'll be going for more copies of Lupus Signature, you're better off just using Lustrous Razor on Cucaracha. Let's get into pistols, and the first priority in terms of versatility and easy access will be Static Mist. The passive mix is suitable for mostly sub-DPS buffers like Mortefi and Chacona due to its ability to buff the incoming character's attack by 10%. But the high base attack and crit rate substat makes it a suitable option for any pistol DPS units like Galbarena, so it can be a suitable placeholder until you can get her signature weapon. The second priority will be Galbarena's signature weapon. Putting it at second place in terms of priorities or in terms of versatility may seem inaccurate, but is the only limited 5-star pistol weapon that has a well-balanced base attack and crit damage substat, unlike Carlotta's signature weapon. The Echo skill damage amplification may be useless on everyone else except Galbarena, but the heavy attack damage amplification is very easy to activate because all the wielder needs to do is to use an Echo skill to do damage, and they will gain the 24% heavy attack damage amplification for 6 seconds, which benefits units like Chacona since her Forte Circuit skills of heavy attack damage. The third priority will be Carlotta's signature weapon due to the high crit damage substat, which synergizes really well with units like Galbarena, since her Echo Sonata effect provides 20% crit rate to take full advantage of the high crit damage as long as you run a crit rate focused Echo. The only character on the roster that can take advantage of the passive is Trisha, because using Boom Boom, which is her Forte Circuit, 5 seconds after an intro skill or casting her Liberation will benefit from the 48% resonance skill damage bonus. The last priority on the list will be Chacona's signature weapon. The huge crit rate makes it viable on any DPS like Galbarena, hybrids, and sub-DPS units, but the low base attack and the passive being heavily restricted to Chacona reduces its versatility since Chacona is the only pistol unit that can apply arrow erosion. The last weapon class that we need to cover is Gauntlets, and the first priority will be Verity's Handle, which has a well-balanced base attack and crit rate of 587 and 24.3% respectively. In terms of synergy with other units, you can run it on Rocha as a crit rate static to make sure she can provide all the attack buff from her Resonance Liberation. Yuno can take full advantage of the Resonance Liberation damage bonus from the passive since she skills off Liberation damage, and she can use her skill in the New Moon state to refresh the 48% Liberation damage bonus when doing damage. You can also run it on Zani, not just because of the high base attack and crit rate substat, but the damage from Last Stand, which is the special animation that she can use when she runs out of Forte stacks, skills off Liberation damage. And keep in mind that using Zani's skill, which triggers the special parry, can refresh the duration of the Liberation damage bonus and keep it long enough for you to use the Last Stand attack when she runs out of Forte stacks. Yuno's signature will be the second priority, not just because of the low base attack, but the second part of the passive is much more restrictive compared to Verity's Handle. Tragic Comedy or Roach's signature will be the third priority since you can only use it on Zani aside from Rocha in terms of synergy with the passive. The passive on Zani's weapon amplifies Spectrofrazzle damage, but she's the only resonator at the moment that skills up Spectrofrazzle. So the 8% defense ignore is the main focus here, which is easy to activate by just casting basic attacks. But the 8% defense ignore is pretty low, which is why it takes the last place in terms of priority. I don't recommend Abyss Surges as a versatile weapon option, not just because of the attack substat, but the basic attack damage bonus and the resonance skill damage bonus benefits no limited 5-star Gauntlet user on the current roster at the time of making this video, so Ling Yang is the only 5-star standard unit that can take full advantage of it at the moment. That'll be all for my updated guide on how to choose the best free-to-play weapons depending on the characters that you have on your account and the ones that you plan to pull in the future. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to help support the channel because it's free and you can always change your mind. Our Discord link will be in the pinned comment if you're having any issues with the game, help with your builds, or you just want a place to chill and hang out. We're also giving away Lunites subscriptions and Battlepass, so be sure to hop on the server and find out how to apply for the event to stand a chance of winning so that it'll be easy to get upcoming characters. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.